Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday, November 25th, the calm before the storm. Bitcoin just put in its first real bounce in nearly 2 weeks, and absolutely nobody trusts it. After spending the weekend half asleep in the low 80s, Bitcoin suddenly climbs back toward 88,000, catching analysts completely off guard. Ethereum jumped 4%, Solana perked up, even sentiment flickered like, wait, are we allowed to feel feelings again? And then every analyst on Earth immediately said the same thing. We're still in a bear market, do not celebrate, do not smile, do not enjoy anything. Crypto is the only industry where a 7-month low followed by a $5,000 bounce is considered suspicious activity. Meanwhile, ETF flows tell a totally different story. November is on track for nearly $3.7 billion in outflows, and almost all of Bitcoin's losses this month happened during U.S. trading hours. In other words, Wall Street freaked out before retail ever showed up, and now the market is trying to figure out whether this morning's bounce is real or just Thanksgiving gas. Because tomorrow is PCE, the one number that could either save this market or dump it straight back into the 70,000s. PCI came in soft this morning, which is great because it means inflation might finally be chill. Or it means nothing because PCE tomorrow still decides whether we cry. Altcoins showing early signs of life, volatility creeping back, analysts divided, traders confused, and the market suddenly looks awake. We'll break it all down right now.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
Let's take a look at the markets this morning because we woke up to a mix of relief, hesitation, and a little bit of pre-Thanksgiving chaos. Bitcoin is holding surprisingly well after its bounce yesterday, trading just under 88,000. No major sell pressure overnight, and volatility is creeping back in. The interesting part? Almost all of November's downside happened during U.S. trading hours, so the recovery we're seeing now is coming from Asia and Europe, not New York. U.S. traders showed up this morning like, wait, what did you guys do? Ethereum is up around 4% over the last 24 hours. Nothing explosive, but finally showing signs of life. And just like Bitcoin, most of its recovery came when the U.S. was asleep. Make of that what you will. Solana is trying its best to reclaim momentum, hovering around 129 after a weekend of chop. It's not bullish yet, but it's at least stopped behaving like it owes someone money. And XRP finally got its moment. Multiple spot XRP ETFs officially launched yesterday, November 24th, including products from Franklin Templeton, XRPZ, Bitwise, Grayscale, GXRP, and Canary Capital, XRPC. This is the first time in history that XRP has had institutional-grade spot ETF access. And the numbers were big, over $85 million in first-day volume, pushing XRP decisively above the $2 mark. By this morning, total ETF holdings surpassed 262 million XRP, worth roughly $579 million at current prices. And Bitwise alone saw $135 million in inflows in its first 3 days. So yes, XRP woke up yesterday and said, I would like to speak to the manager. And the entire ETF industry answered, right this way, ma'am. This caps off a rapid rollout. Canary Capital ETF launched November 13th. Rex Osprey followed on November 20th. And yesterday was the full institutional wave thanks to the SEC finally resolving the Ripple case earlier this year. In short, XRP didn't just get ETF approval, it got a whole menu. We also got PCI numbers this morning, slightly softer than expected. It's not a full trend reversal, but it hints at cooling inflation heading into tomorrow's big PCE print. So PCI said, relax a little, and PCE tomorrow will decide whether we get a holiday rally or a holiday meltdown. ETF flows are still a problem. November is on track for almost $3.7 billion in redemptions, the worst month since launch. And analysts now confirm what retail already suspected. Institutions were dumping long before the headlines. It's like finding out the firefighters started the fire. Technically not illegal, but emotionally damaging. Even with this bounce, the fear and greed index is stuck in fear. Order books are thin, liquidity is low, and whales are mostly staying sidelined until tomorrow's PCE. Altcoins are showing early strength, but without a strong Bitcoin lead, nobody's taking the bait yet. So the market today is cautiously green. Not euphoric, not convinced, but definitely awake again. The bounce is real, but the confidence isn't. And everything now hinges on PCE tomorrow. Up next, we'll dive into the biggest stories driving today's narrative, from institutional outflows to macro pressure and why analysts are suddenly calling Bitcoin a bear market asset. We'll get into it right after the break.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
Let's get into what's actually driving the market today, because the bounce we're seeing has a lot of people confused, and for once, confused might be the right reaction. Let's start with the fun one. Multiple analysts this morning officially declared Bitcoin to be in a bear market. And the reason has nothing to do with crypto sentiment. It's tied to the broader risk-off environment and a complete collapse in U.S. market appetite. Morningstar, Bloomberg, and several macro desks all say the same thing. Institutions are not positioning for upside. They're positioning for insulation. When analysts tell you it's too soon to buy, but the chart tells you it's too late to sell, you get whatever we're experiencing right now. And here's something unusual. Researchers confirmed this morning that nearly all of Bitcoin's November losses happened during U.S. trading hours. That means the U.S. desks were dumping, while Asia and Europe were basically shrugging. America sold the fear. Everyone else is buying the calm down. Classic global teamwork. Yesterday's XRP ETF wave wasn't just big, it was historic. Franklin Templeton, Bitwise, Grayscale, and Canary Capital all launched spot XRP ETFs on the same day, with $85 million in first-day volume and inflows continuing this morning. Bitwise alone pulled $135 million in the first 72 hours. Total ETF-held XRP now sits above 262 million tokens. After a decade of waiting, XRP skipped adoption and went straight to, we're an institution now. Even with today's bounce, ETF data is still ugly. We're heading toward roughly 3.7 billion in outflows for November, the worst ETF month since launch. And that's why Bitcoin isn't ripping on this morning's green candles. Institutions are still yanking money. It's like filling a bathtub while someone else is unplugging the drain. Over the weekend, Binance leadership said Bitcoin volatility is now in line with traditional assets. Congratulations to Bitcoin for becoming a boring adult. Next, it'll be buying index funds and complaining about property taxes. Bloomberg reports that several tech and fintech IPO candidates have delayed their timelines because the crypto crash hit confidence across the entire speculative sector. So Bitcoin's 7-month low didn't just hurt traders, it sent shockwaves into equities, private markets, and even venture pipelines. You break it, you buy it. And of course, the real boss fight is tomorrow, PCE, the number the Fed actually cares about. This morning's softer PCI gave markets a small boost, but PCE is the decision maker. If it's soft, the market could ignite. If it's hot, the recovery dies instantly. This is the financial version of choose wisely. Ethereum up 4%, Solana creeping higher, XRP surging off ETF launches. But no one is calling this an altcoin rally. This is pre-PCE positioning. Nothing more, nothing less. So that's where we stand today. A surprise Bitcoin bounce, XRP's biggest institutional moment ever, and a market trying to look optimistic while keeping one eye glued to tomorrow's PCE report. Up next, predictions, what this bounce really means, what Wednesday could trigger, and the levels that matter most heading into Thanksgiving. Back in a moment.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, let's talk about what this morning's recovery actually means and what tomorrow's PCE report could do to the entire market. This rebound up toward 88,000 does look real, but it's happening in the thinnest liquidity conditions we've had since summer. That means Bitcoin can move thousands of dollars on relatively small volume. So yes, the bounce is legitimate, but it can vanish just as fast. This isn't confidence. It's Bitcoin wobbling like a newborn deer. Everything hinges on the PCE print. Everything. Here's the simple framework. Soft PCE, Bitcoin likely retests 90,000 to 92,000, altcoins follow, market gets a holiday rally. Hot PCE, Bitcoin can drop back into the 78,000 to 82,000 zone, wiping out the entire bounce instantly. PCI came in soft this morning, a good sign, but PCE is the number that decides whether the Fed has breathing room or panic room. With multiple spot ETFs now trading and nearly $600 million already flowing in, XRP has a very different setup from the rest of the market. ETF-driven demand doesn't care what Bitcoin is doing in the short term. It cares about inflows, availability, and liquidity. So, if PCE is even slightly friendly, XRP might be one of the first to explode upward. XRP holders have been waiting 10 years for this moment. They're not going to sleep through it. ETH and Sol are waking up, but neither has a catalyst big enough to lead a rally. If Bitcoin pushes above 90, they will run. If Bitcoin fails, they will sit down quietly like disciplined children. ETH especially is in that classic, I'm not dead, just napping phase. Even if PCE is soft tomorrow, the market still has to contend with nearly $3.7 billion in November outflows from Bitcoin ETFs. This doesn't prevent a rally, but it does limit how far the rally can go before running into resistance. It's like driving with the parking brake half on. You can move, it just takes a lot more energy. Since nearly all of the November downside happened during U.S. trading hours, today and tomorrow are a test. If the U.S. desks stop selling into strength, the bounce continues. If they repeat last week, expect a red afternoon. Wall Street becoming bullish again is the financial equivalent of convincing a cat to get in the bathtub. Here are the real levels to watch heading into tomorrow. 88K, holding this shows strength. 90K, psychological recovery zone. 92.5K, breakout confirmation. 82K, danger zone. 78K to 80K, max pain PCE downside target. Expect sideways chop into tomorrow, then aggressive volatility once PCE hits. So the short version is this. Today's strength is real, but tomorrow decides everything. Coming up next, your mailbag and proof of thought questions for Tuesday. And yes, a lot of you have opinions about XRP's new ETF fame. We'll get into it right after the break.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, time for today's mailbag and proof of thought, where your questions, takes, and spicy opinions fuel the show. First one comes from Travis in Colorado. Sen, do you think today's bounce is real, or are we getting baited right before PCE? This is the question today, and the honest answer is yes, both. It's a real bounce in fin liquidity, which means it's real, but fragile. Think of it like a balloon. It's floating, but one macro needle tomorrow can pop it instantly. So enjoy it, just don't get too attached. Next one is from Alicia in Toronto. Is XRP going to keep running now that the ETF's launched, or is this a short-term hype pump? This is the first time in history XRP has had true institutional rails. Multiple ETFs, nearly $600 million already flowing in. This isn't a meme pump. If PCE is soft tomorrow, the ETF flows could compound the move. Institutional demand doesn't turn on and off like retail. Short-term hype? Yes. Long-term trend? Also yes. Welcome to crypto, where both things are true at the same time. This third message is from Andres in Miami and says, why are analysts suddenly calling Bitcoin a bear market asset again? Because institutions are scared, not because Bitcoin is weak. Volatility isn't the issue. Liquidity isn't the issue. Macro is the issue. U.S. trading hours did almost all the selling this month. So analysts call it a bear market asset because their bosses check their positions every morning and they're tired of explaining red candles. This next one is from Carlos in Texas and asks, if nearly all the November downside happened during U.S. trading hours, should we just ignore the U.S. session from now on? Trust me, I've considered it. But no, the U.S. session still sets narrative direction. Even if Asia and Europe are the ones generating the bounce, New York still determines whether the bounce survives. So don't ignore the U.S. session, just manage expectations, and maybe avoid checking your phone between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern. Fifth question of today is from Rebecca in London, and she wants to know, with Powell rumored to consider a December rate cut, does that mean the bottom is already in? Powell's rumored pivot is definitely powering some of this optimism, but it doesn't lock the bottom. If PCE is soft tomorrow, then yes, this morning's bounce could mark the start of a real reversal. If PCE is hot, the bottom is wherever your emotional support coffee takes you. Last submission, a proof of thought from Casey in Utah. Does thin liquidity make it easier for whales to push the market up or down? Both. Thin liquidity is agnostic. It amplifies whatever direction the next big move goes. That's why today's bounce looks dramatic, but still feels uncertain. It doesn't take much to move price right now. One whale can push the market. 2 whales can start a trend. 3 whales can ruin Thanksgiving dinner. And that wraps today's mailbag and proof of thought. Some sharp questions today, and a lot of nervous energy ahead of tomorrow's PCE report. Up next, the SENB ecosystem update, what's rolling out this week, and a look at how the community is shaping tomorrow's show. Back in a moment.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about what's happening inside the SENB ecosystem. Because while the markets were busy stress testing everyone's emotions, the project kept moving forward. The proof of thought inbox was packed today. More questions, more theories, more chaos, and more people getting involved every single episode. What's interesting is how many of you are now watching the show on X, then coming to the website to submit your takes. That cross-platform movement is exactly what grows a decentralized audience. At this rate, I'll be reading questions in my sleep. The website saw another spike in traffic over the last 24 hours, mostly on the Daily Brief page and the new video archive sections. And this is exactly how a media ecosystem expands. New viewers discover the X upload, bounce to the website, listen to the radio versions, and then start exploring the rest of the universe. Momentum isn't just a chart term. It's a community metric. We've got new character scripts in development, new crossovers in planning, and a couple of surprises brewing for the December slate. And as Tooker fans know, these little integrations are the connective tissue that build show loyalty. Also, Alex Jones is getting restless, which is usually a sign that something unhinged is coming. The SENB token continues to grow quietly, and honestly, that's ideal in a market like this. While the charts churn, the token is getting infrastructure, the website is getting updates, and utilities are being built that will matter once the market stabilizes. It's like planting seeds during a hurricane. Messy now, beautiful later. Phase 1 is basically complete, and Phase 2 is now quietly underway ahead of schedule. That means audience participation tools, more creator features, expanded radio content, character-driven spin-offs, and deeper integration of proof of thought into the show. The community is shaping the direction faster than expected, and the ecosystem is adapting with it. And that's your SENB update. Steady progress, growing engagement, and a media project accelerating even while the markets hold their breath. We'll wrap things up with today's closing thoughts right after the break.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, that wraps up the Tuesday edition of the SENB Daily Brief, a day that gave us a bounce, a breather, and just enough hope to make tomorrow dangerous. Bitcoin climbed back into the high 80,000s, XRP ETF inflows continued pouring in, altcoins showed signs of life, and PCE came in soft, just enough to get traders wondering, are we actually turning a corner? But make no mistake, PCE tomorrow decides everything. That print will determine whether this bounce becomes a trend or just a short-lived Thanksgiving appetizer. The market is basically in a holding pattern, like someone circling a parking lot waiting for a Black Friday deal, full of energy, but not moving until the doors open. Looking ahead, tomorrow, we'll break the PCE data live as it comes in, track the immediate market reaction, and see whether institutions stay on the sidelines or start dipping back into the water. And of course, we'll be watching the U.S. trading session closely because they've been responsible for almost all the downside this month. So if today felt like the market was inhaling, that's because it was. Tomorrow is the exhale. Whatever happens, stay grounded, stay smart, and remember, volatility isn't the enemy. Blindness is. This has been the SENB Daily Brief for Tuesday, November 25th. Thank you for watching, thank you for the Proof of Thought submissions, and thank you for being part of the fastest growing media project in crypto. I'm SENB Hero, and I'll see you tomorrow. The SENB Daily Brief is a production of SENB Hero Media in collaboration with Whole Shot Coffee, coffee that fuels champions. Written and hosted by yours truly, SENB Hero. Production, editing, and scheduling handled by Maya Valencia, who somehow keeps me on time, caffeinated, and occasionally polite. Original theme music composed and produced by Paul Hahn, the community legend whose beats hit harder than a Fed rate hike. Research support provided by the SENB community. Proof that sarcasm and spreadsheets can coexist. For more shows, merch, and on-chain chaos, visit senbheromedia.com. Thanks for tuning in. Stay caffeinated. And remember, if it's not in the brief, it probably wasn't bullish anyway.
Set my wallet free.